We'll start Dalet, Amar Aleph, right on the top. Easy. It says Rav Bar Achva de Rav Chia Bar Achte. Rav is the nephew of Rav Chia. He's the nephew of Rav Chia in two ways. Nephew of Rav Chia because Rav Chia was his father's brother. That's easy. He's also the nephew of Rav Chia because Rav Chia is his mother's brother. Now that gets a little confusing because that sounds like Rav married his sister. Can't be his Rav Chia. They can't share a brother, but it turns out that they can, because Rav's grandfather was married twice, and Rav and Rav Chia didn't share the same mother. Rav Chia had a mother, had a sister with a different mother. Rav Chia himself and Rav had the same father. They had a different mother. Now, Rav's wife was Rav Chia's sister, but not from the same father, from a different father. Same. Basically they were totally not related. From a previous marriage, Rav Chia's mother had a daughter, and her name was Ema. Rav's father's name was Evu. So what happened was like this. That's all the introduction. If you look in Rashi, it's interesting. Rashi quotes the Gemara. It says the different sons of different uncles of Rav: Evu, Chana, Shila, Marta, and Rav Chia. Is that 5? Evu, Chana, Shila, Marta, and Rav Chia. I assume those are men, but I may be mistaken. Chana sounds like a woman, but we use that name all the time. Rabba Bar Chana, or Rabba Bar Chana. And Marta sounds like a woman. Rav Shila, there was a Rav Shila in Babel. I don't think this was him. Okay. So Kisalak Lahasam, when Rav comes to Eretz Yisrael, I guess a little later, first he came with Rav Chia. He must have gone back and then come back a second time. Amalei, so we're going to read the Gemara according to Rashi right now. Amalei, Rav Chia says to Rav, Evu Kayim, is my brother, your father, alive? So Amalei, so Rav responds, Ema Kayemes? Why don't you ask about my mother, Ema? Now her name was Ema, but she was also a mother. Why don't you ask about Ema? So Amalei, so he says, you're right. Ema Kayemes, is Ema, my sister, alive? Amalei, Evu Kayem. He said, why don't you ask me about my father? So he's like, keeps avoiding the question by saying, you should have asked me a different question. So Amalei Lashama, he understands from this that Rav doesn't want to say that his parents passed away, which is Rav Chia's brother and sister. So Rav Chia understands that they passed away. Marlei Lashami, so Rav Chia says to his servant, take off my shoes and then take my clothing to the Beis HaMerchatz. We'll see what this means, what the halachas we learn from this is. Okay, that was the version according to Rashi. Places quotes Rabbeinu Chananel, or Rabbeinu Chananel is on the side, where we have a slightly different version, where Rav Chia asks Rav, he says, he doesn't say Evu Kayim, he says Abba Kayim, is my father alive, which is your grandfather? Rav is Rav Chia's nephew. Rav's father and Rav Chia are brother. Rav's mother and Rav Chia are brother sister. So Rav Chia says, is my father alive? So Rav says, my father's alive. He says, yes, is my mother alive? He says, my mother's alive. And Rav Chia understands from that his father had passed away. His own father, which is Rav's grandfather. Those are two versions to the story. Okay. The reason for this confusion is that because there are names here that are father and mother, that's what led to this confusion, because Rav's grandfather's name was Abba. Rav's father's name was Abel. Abel's father was Abba. So that's what led to this confusion. When he says, according to one Girsa, it says Abba Kayemes, that means your father, means Abba, my father. Anyway, okay, and Ema, which is Rav's mother, was actually her name. So that gets confusing. So what do we learn from this? Shmamina Tlas. We learn from this three things. Shmamina, the first thing is Avalasa Benilas Asandal. Rav Chia asked for his shoes to be removed. So that means he was in mourning. So he had to take off. He had to take off his shoes. Yeah, that we'll see in a moment. Shmamina, another second thing that we learn is Shmor Recheike Nehegas El Yom Echad. You don't have to sit Shiva for 7 days. It's only one day. Shmamina Mixasiyam Kakulai. We also see that he says right away, he says, take my clothing to the bathhouse. That means he's getting ready to wash. It means he takes off his shoes, he sits on the floor, maybe they say something to him or something, and then he right away goes, he only has to sit for an hour. It's called Shmor Rechaika. If you hear about someone is deceased, the relative, after 30 days of the event, after the occurrence, so then, of the passing, so then you only sit for 1 hour. So it's in the Nehegas El Yom Echad, and even the Yom Echad is only Miktasim Kekul. Okay. I guess this came in because it's a continuation of yesterday's Gemara, where the person didn't want to say the wheat was spoiled. He said the barley is okay, or whatever he was supposed to say. So here Rav doesn't want to say that they passed away. Yehuda Amar Dunu Daini. Person that said, let's go to court. What do they call this? Litigious, right? Everything is, okay, I'll take you to court. So he would say, let's go to Bezdin. Amri Shmamina Midan Kasi, Dixiv Dan Yadiname Kachab Shifte Yisrael. That was actually better for him. I think the one interpretation of this Gemara is not that he was just litigious. He was, he used this as like some sort of incantation. They thought that he was really an Eved Avodah Zarah. Before he did anything, he would say, we'll go to court. And then somehow he thought that would help him. So they thought that maybe he's a heretic or something, maybe his lineage isn't good. And then they said, no, he's from the tribe of Dan. That's one of the pshatim over here. Because it says about Dan, that Dan will judge the nation like one of the tribes of Israel. There was one person that would always say, on the seashore, I'm going to build a palace. We spoke about this beach house in Hollywood. So they said, they found out that he came from Zvulun. That Zvulun dwells by the seashore. Okay. Rashi has another pshat here. He brings from the Goinim. It says, Akef Yama Asna Birasa. A slight version, a different text. He said, Asna means a bush. By the seashore, even a bush is like a cypress. So he's saying everything by the seashore is better. So okay, it comes from Zvulun. Okay, now we're back to Pesachim. We're back to the halachas of B'dikas Chametz. Yeah, the Chassidish Sfarim say that Pesach is Pesach, mouth speaks. So maybe that's an association here at the beginning of the Gemara talks about speech. Okay, it says V'hashta d'kaim ulanda kol yalma or urtahu. Okay, we've established that when's the time for B'dikas Chametz? It's at night, right? The 14th by night. It's not in the morning. So Michti, Bein l'Rabbi Yehuda, Bein l'Rabbi Meir. We're going to have a Mishnah coming up. It's going to be quoted soon. Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Meir argue about when is the time of beer chametz, when do you have to destroy the chametz, when you have to stop eating, when you destroy it. So chametz, according to both of them, chametz ein asur mishay shayis l'mayla. The time that it's forbidden, that it's prohibited, is sheish shayis l'mayla, from the 7th hour, from after 6 hours. 6 hour, from the 6th hour and up, that's when it's forbidden. So the Gemara says, "V'nivdik b'shis." So why don't we do b'dikas chametz 1 hour before? So let's say 1 o'clock is the 7th hour of the day. We should do b'dikas chametz at 12 p.m., 12 noon. The Gemara says, "V'chitem is using makdim l'mitzvahs." Nibdik mitzafra. If you're going to tell me, is using makdim l'mitzvahs. So we're going to do it the night before. There's no such thing. Zriz Makdim L'Mitzvahs doesn't tell you the night before. Zriz Makdim L'Mitzvahs, you're supposed to do a mitzvah early. That should tell me just the morning. It says in the 8th day, you circumcise his foreskin. B'tanya was starting to brayse. Kol yom kula kashal milal Zriz Makdim L'Mitzvahs. Shneimar v'yashkim avram b'baker. Really, you have the whole day to do it, but it's better to do it in the morning because it says Vayashkim Avram b'baker. Avram got up early in the morning. Places has a discussion over here. How do you know that Avram is getting up early in the morning to go to the Akedah? Has to do with Zrizim Makdim Mitzvahs. Maybe the reason why he didn't, how do you know? Maybe he should have gone the night before, right? Maybe, how do you know Zrizim Makdim Mitzvah starts in the morning? They say, well, that he got up early in the morning. But then that's a proof that he didn't have Zrizim Makdim Mitzvah from the night before. But maybe that's not so. Maybe he didn't want to travel at night for other reasons. Because a person shouldn't go out at night. It just says that for going out at night, the person shouldn't go out at night. That's only alone. Over here, he was going with his 2 helpers, Shnei Naravita, and he was also going for a mitzvah. So if Zriz Makdim L'Mitzvah supplied the night prior as well, then he would have gone by the night. The fact that he went in the morning means that Zriz Makdim L'Mitzvah starts in the morning. So we're asking, when is the Isser of Chametz? The Isser of Chametz is only 1 o'clock on Erev Pesach. Why do we need to do B'dikas Chametz the night before? Do it at 12 o'clock. Oh, you want to say Zriz Makdim Mitzvahs? Okay, do it in the morning. But the night before, well, where do we get the night before? That's the Gemara's question over here. There's a surprising Rashi. Rashi says that there's an Isser of Bal Yirah beginning with the 6th hour of the day. We know that in the 6th hour of the day, you're not allowed to eat chametz. I guess you're not allowed to banana either. From the 6th hour on Erev Pesach. But the Isser of Bal Yirah, Bal Yimatzeh, Shivas Yamim, Sola Yimatzeh B'Batechem is really only for those 7 days. Rashi nevertheless says that it starts on the, which is a little bit surprising. Okay. Amar of Nachman Bar Yitzchak, Nachman Bar Yitzchak gives us the answer. Why is B'dikas Chametz by night? He says, it's because that's the time when people are in their house, and that's the time when the candle works. Rashi asks, why do you need a candle? If by night you need a candle. Do it by day. And there's 2 points here. One is people are in their house at night. The other one is the candle works. Well, for the part that the candle works, I get it, the candle works. He says the candle is stronger by night. By day, a candle isn't strong. It's not strong because you have sunlight. So use the sunlight. So that he learns from a pasuk later on, chipus, that you have to do it with a search, which is using a candle, not with sunlight. That's we learned from later on. Okay. Amar Abaya. Abaya says, based on this, Hilka, Chaitzor from Merabanan, Leiliftach Beidni, Beorta the place in Nagi Arbesa. Tzor from Merabanan, a Talmud Chacham, shouldn't start his learning. Idne is his Seder, his time for learning. He shouldn't start his time for learning on the 13th, the night after the 13th, the night before the 14th. You shouldn't, I don't know if it means you shouldn't start learning at all, you shouldn't start a new Masechta. He'll get carried away, he'll miss the B'dikas Chametz. I think in Allah it says that you're not supposed to learn. Dilma mashchale shmaite vaslem nuyim in mitzvah. Maybe he'll get carried away and he won't perform the takana de Rabbanan that you have to do B'dikas Chametz. Why is B'dikas Chametz only midrabanan? We said before, because midiraisa you can get away with just doing bittul. You just say nullify it. I'm not interested in it. It's batal kafadara. At least in Rashi's. Taisa said we need a b'dika because we suspect we might end up eating it. Shemiyat's gluski up or something. Okay. Boy, my name Rav Nachman Yitzchak. Masker bayis chaver bar basal mi livdik ala masker livdik the chamer didei or ideal mal asech livdik the sir b'shusakai. It's a question of it. They asked Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak. Someone rents a house on the 14th. Who has to do the b'dika? The renter. Who's the renter? The renter is the guy that's the tenant. Or what is there, rentee? How it's pronounced? Or the owner. The renter or the owner. Who has to do the b'dika? The way Rashi learns the question is from the text of the Gemara. The text of the Gemara is the owner owns the chametz, so he should do the b'dika. Or maybe the seicher, because he has the property for now. He doesn't own the chametz, but he is in the property, and it's bershusay. It's in his possession, sort of, not possession as ownership. It's in his area. That's how Rashi's learning it. Taisus is bothered by this because if the question is just ownership of item or ownership or rights of usage to the property, if that's the question, then what does that have to do with renting it on the 14th? You rent it on the 13th, you have the same question. Who's Chachiv B'dika? The owner of the chametz or the B'dika also means taking it out and destroying it. Or the person that has the rights to the property. So Taisva says, he puts the question different. He puts the question that when the 14th by night came in, based on what we said, that the Zman of B'dikas Chametz is the 14th by night. So it's possible that the Chiyuv B'dika began on the 14th by night before the renter came in. And the Chiyuv was on the owner. And it becomes like an irrevocable Chiyuv that doesn't come off just because he now rented it out to someone else. So that's the Gemara's question. It's not ownership versus rights to property. It's the chiyuv came in. Is it revoked by he now rented it out? Tashma, come and listen. If someone rents a house to his friend, the renter, the tenant, needs to put up the mezuzah. Well, sounds like a good proof. The tenant has to put up the mezuzah. The tenant is the one that has to, according to Rashi, it's nice that it's the one that's there, not the owner of the house. It's the one that's in there. So, how does Taisus learn this? Taisus learns like this: that the obligation to put up the mezuzah was before the renter came in. That's what Taisus is discussing. Right? Okay. So does it go off? Does the obligation get passed on to this new tenant? That's the question. So we're saying that it does, because it's passed on to the new tenant. According to Rashi, it's just the person that has the living rights to that place. So he's the one that should also do the b'dika. The Gemara says it's not a proof. says mezuzah is different. Mezuzah is chayvas hadar. So Tosfos would learn that, what are you telling me at a chiyuv before? But now it's whoever lives there that has the obligation. The obligation is the living in the house. And so therefore it gets passed on to the person that lives there. Rashi says, what's the answer over here? It's mezuzah chayvas hadar. Rashi says, the whole question according to Rashi was, do we go after ownership or do we go after the one that's there? He said we go after the one that's there for mezuzah. They said, no, mezuzah is different. Mezuzah goes after the one that's there. That was our question. Do you go after the one that's there? He said mezuzah. We have the answer. Right? He didn't say a distinction. So Rashi explains that mezuzah is a deraisa. Is mezuzah really a deraisa? It's a deraisa. I thought if you're a renter, you have 30 days to put it out. Yeah, but I thought it was based on a deraisa, derabanan or something. Anyway, Rashi says, whatever the case is, Rashi says that mezuzah is a deraisa. Beisecha, biyosecha, nichnas v'yotziba. It's midaraisa on the seicha. However, b'dikas chametz is a derabanan. So therefore you can't compare. Mezuzah chayvas hadar, it's a deraisa. B'dikas chametz is a derabanan. You could get away with just doing bittul. So the Gemara's question is, who did the rabbis put the obligation on? It has no connection to the deraisa of mezuzah. Okay, so Amalu Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak Tanina. We actually have a Mishnah that supports this. Tanina is usually a Mishnah. I'm not sure if it's usually a Mishnah. Someone rents a house to his friend. If it's the 14th and the keys were not passed over from the landlord to the tenant, so Alamaska lived there. The mask has to do the bedika. If the keys were given over and it wasn't the 14th yet, so then alaseicha lived there. Very clear. The answer is that it depends if he rents it. It's a big question. Everyone asks me every year. I always have to look it up again. I'm going to Orlando for Pesach. Getting there after Shkia, whatever. Do I have a chiyuv of bedika? So you have to do bedikas chametz. Everyone has to do bedikas chametz. The question is, on which house they have to do bedikas chametz. So if you did it in your house in Miami, and then you go to Orlando, maybe you reyaitz already in your house here, and that house you come after this month. Maybe this month continues the whole evening. I don't know all of this. Huh? Yeah, probably. But I don't. The family is not halacha sheh. Anyway, it's based on these discussions. Okay, Ba'im name Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak. I just need to point out that Tosfos has an argument with Rashi over here. What the point of giving the keys over? Rashi says giving over the keys is a kinyan of the renting, and Tosfos says that's not considered a kinyan. So what is the point of the keys? The point of the keys is just you have access. Not a kinyan. It's just practical access. Are you able to get in to do your? Talking about that you acquired it from the way the kinyanim work. How does a kinyan work? Kesef shtar and chazaka. That's how karka works. You give the money, you pay the down payment down or whatever it is, pay the rent. So it works with other kinyanim, not handing over the keys. Okay. I don't think that's how it is today. I think today they hand you the keys and it's like it's yours. No? At least for the cars. Give you the keys. Okay, by my name Rav Nachman Yitzchak, new question. I'm asking by Slachaveir Bar Basa, Chaskasi Badak, Chaskasi Badak. Interesting question. You go into the house, the guy didn't tell you, was it checked or not? So do you assume that it was checked? That there's no chametz there? We just found out that it's your obligation, right? We said if you go in on the 14th, oh, this is bit our boss. Oh, thank you. This is on. He's going in on the 14th. The 14th in the morning, Rashi points out. So it was already the time of the bedika was the previous night. So what has it been checked or not? My nafkamina, what's the difference? L'shaila, ask the guy, did he check it? My answer is a simple answer. This is anyone that learns Gemara knows that this is going to be the answer. The lacy lie de l'shaila is not around. Okay, that's the question. So latruche lahaimai, does the person have to bother himself just because he doesn't know to do another bedika? Yeah, but it says that if you didn't check at night, then you check by day. If you didn't check by day, you check this manaviyah. So that's no, because now that you're living in over Pesach, so if there was no checking done on this, there's no checking done, then really you should have to do a bedika. Whether according to Tosfos it's easy. According to Tosfos, you have to do a bedika because maybe there's food there that you may end up eating. That's the easy way to understand it. According to Rashi, it's not his chametz. Maybe does it become the person's chametz? No, it doesn't become his chametz. Yeah, I don't know. We're asking, does he need to do b'dikas chametz based on the fact that we don't know if the owner did it the previous night? So Amalu Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak Tanisur. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak says it's a brisa. Hakol ne'amanim al biyar chametz afilu nashim afilu avadim afilu ketanim. Everyone is trusted on b'dikas chametz. The women, slaves, and minors. Now, I don't know if the raya is from the women, because women are trusted on a lot of things. Right? We trust women for a lot of things. The question is the minors in the avadim, that's a bit of a chiddush. So, why are they trusted? It must be that it's chaskasi badik anyway. My time in Mehemne, why are they trusted? The answer is, we turn the page, Dalet Amud Beis, La Mishum de chaskasi badik. What are we trusting them? We're trusting them to say that this house was checked. The reason why we're trusting them is because there's an assumption that the person checked it anyway. And so it's not a big deal to trust them. Tosfos asks, so what do you mean you're trusting them if you don't need them to say anything? If it's assumed that it's checked anyway, so what does it mean that you're trusting them? 1 second, let's read a drop further. It must be everyone's considered a chaver when it comes to b'dikas chametz. So what's a pshat chaver? Chaver is usually something that has to do with shumas and meisers. We say like this, that and when Dalet Amud Beis is on the top, 4b. You assume that this person has taken shumas and meisers, and you don't have to question it. It says to the extent the Tanya started in a brisa, chaver shemes, a chaver that passes away. Biniach megurim malei pears, he leaves a granary or something, a basket full of fruits. Even if they were just put in that day, and he passed away today, it's assumed that they're fixed, that the meisers were taken. He wouldn't have wanted to pass away with these things not rectified. It's not taken care of. So there's a chazaka that it's fixed. So the same thing we're going to say over here, that there's a chazaka that the b'dikas chametz was done. Hakol chaverim etzel b'dikas chametz. You went into a house You don't know if B'dikas Chametz was done the night before you went in by day. Hakol Chaver Mitzvah B'dikas Chametz. Everyone is trusted that they did B'dikas Chametz, so you don't have to check. What's the proof? The proof is that I can trust a child or a slave or a woman to tell me that the B'dikas Chametz was done. Where it says Mimai. How do you know that that's the fact? Dilma Shani Hacha Mishum de Ka'amri Hani. Maybe the reason why you don't have to do B'dikas Chametz in this case is because the woman, the child, or the minor told you. It's not because of a chazaka that everyone does B'dikas Chametz automatically. We're looking for an assumption of what's going on in this person's house that no one told them anything. So you're telling me, because women that tell you it's accepted, that means that it was automatically done. No, when they tell you, then yes. When they don't tell you, then no. So it says, Amira Dahani Midi Mishashes Pei. Does the statement of a woman, a child, or a slave have any substance? It can't be that's a real testimony. Elamai de Chaskasi Badak. What do you want to tell me? It must be that the assumption is that it was checked anyway. So Hayakol Nemanim Kalabatim Chaskas Pedukim Barbasmi Baile. So why do you tell me everyone is trusted? Tell me all houses are assumed to be checked. Taisus now goes back and says, what was the Havamina? To even say that it's Chaskasi Badak. We see that we're relying on these people. They have to tell you something. If it's Chaskasi Badak, then why do they have to say anything? Taisus says that there's a rule that anything that you're able to, he doesn't say those words, but that's the idea. Anything that you're able to clarify, you have to clarify. Even though if you can't clarify it, you just rely on the assumption. But if the person is available to ask, you have to ask. So the Havamina is that you don't have to ask because these people told you that it's acceptable. Really, if no one told you anything, it would have been acceptable anyway because Chaskasi Badak. The guy is in the town and I should really go ask him, just due diligence, just to ask, make sure. It says, no, the woman, the child, and the slave told you, so you don't have to do that. That's what in other words, the fact that they're Neman isn't taking away from Chaskasi Badak. It's taking away from the due diligence that I should have done to ask the owner, did you actually check it? That's the Havamina. Right? Okay. Elamai, what are you going to say? Misham Damir Dahani. It's because of the statement of these people. Holayamri Hani Loy. But if they don't say anything, then not. Tifshim Minei Dein Chaskasi Badak. The exact proof that you brought, that the fact that you trust a woman or a child or a slave proves to me that it's Chaskasi Badak. It's actually the opposite. The fact that if they don't say anything, then it's not Chaskasi Badak. If they don't say anything, then it's not good. That's a raya that ain't Chaskasi Badak. Without their statement, it wasn't checked. Umar says, like, it's no proof that way. Really, we can say that the house is assumed to have been checked. The chazak is that he didn't check. How do we have such a chazak? But kine, and these people say that they checked it. What could we say that maybe the rabbis don't trust them, that they did a good checking? Kamashman, given the B'dikas Chametz midirabanan, Kamashman is coming to teach us that even since B'dikas Chametz is midirabanan, the midarais a bittul ba'am masagilei is a support. What's the pshat? And what's the reason for B'dikas Chametz? It's because really midarais you could have bittul ba'am masagi. You could have just been mevatel. But so hemnu rabbanan b'derabanan. The whole B'dikas Chametz is only a derabanan. The rabbis trusted a woman or a child to do the b'dika for a derabanan. Interesting discussions. Yeah. Taisvis over here says, 1 second, we trust women every day on things. We trust them. The kasha, the meat, and the shchita as well. In the first Taisvis over there in Chulin, we had a discussion if women should be shechting. Chala, Maisrus. Taisvis says that we could have thought that for Bedikas Chametz we don't trust women because that's really hard. Everything else is easy. Whatever, you clean the chicken, whatever, you salt it, whatever, you trust the women to do it. But Bedikas Chametz is tirchi yisera v'tzarch dikta gadol. So the reason why we trust him is because it's a derabanan. Interesting. Ibaylo, where's the question? Amaske bayis lachavera b'cheskas badik, umatzu sheina badik ma'al. This is like a choshen mishpat shayla. There was an assumption here when you rented the house. There's a classic Orlando story. There's always like a din Torah. So the assumption was that the house was checked, but you go in and you find bagels in the freezer. You find it wasn't checked. So what's the din? Can you get your money back? Can you say that the transaction is off? Mi havi kemekach tais elai, is the schiras over? Can the guy say it's not what I rented? So Tashima, come and listen. Damar Abaya lemi bai basad layavi agra ubadku dinichle lenis lekimitz begufei. Elafil basad layavi agra ubadku dinichle lenis lekimitz b'mayne. Abaya's a chiddush, nice chiddush. Says not only in a place where Bedikas Chametz is done without paying, but even in a place where Bedikas Chametz is done for payment. In other words, you could hire someone to clean your house, to remove the Chametz, removing the Chametz. Nevertheless, the sale is not off because the person is willing to spend money for a mitzvah. So therefore, even though this renter right now is saying, what? He gave me the house, there's crumbs everywhere. No, crumbs are in the shop. There's bagels everywhere. This is crazy. The sale, the renting, the transaction is off. Abaya says no. People are willing to pay for a mitzvah, and if get someone to do it, get someone to clean it up. As Rishonim discuss here, if the owner has to pay him back, the landlord has to, because that was part of the original deal. If it was the cheskas badik, it's unclear if that means that was stipulated clearly, or if that was just an assumption. If it was stipulated clearly, then probably you should have to pay back. Although on the other hand, the owner doesn't gain anything from it. So this would end up in court. Okay, Tanan Hassam. It's taught in a Mishnah. He quoted this Mishnah a few minutes ago. But Meir Eimer, Eichlin kol chamesh v'sarfim b'tchila sheish. The Meir says you're allowed to eat chametz from 11 to 12 a.m. 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. Right? That's the beginning of the 5th hour till the 6th hour. Because you're allowed to eat the whole day. But at the beginning of the 6th hour, you have to burn the chametz, even though the isser is only on the beginning of the 7th hour at 1 o'clock. But you burn it at the beginning of the 6th hour, 12 o'clock. Rabbi Yehuda Aimer, Rabbi says, Eichlin kol arba. You only have until 10 o'clock to eat. Tailan kol chamesh. 11 o'clock, you do nothing. Not till 10 o'clock. You have all of the 10 hour to eat till 10:59. From 11 till 11:59, you don't do anything. And then you burn it at 12 o'clock. The kuli alma miya chametz misheishay salamayla aser. But everyone holds that chametz is aser from the 6th hour and on, which is 1 o'clock. Okay, Rashi. What's the Gezeira Derabanan? Very important Rashi here to understand this Gemara. Rashi, the Kuli Alma Miachametz Mesheshos Mailasa. Rashi say, what Rashi points out is that, look, there's a Gezeira Derabanan here, that it goes from 1 o'clock to 12 o'clock. We know that it's really Asr Minater at 1. At 12 o'clock is when it's burnt. Why is it done like that? Why don't you just burn it at 1? Because it's supposed to be burnt. But it's apparently there's an issue of maybe we'll get confused with the hour. We can't really tell. The sun is here, the sun is there. So you do it an hour earlier. And according to Rabbi Yehuda, you have to stop earlier. You have to eat. Eating, and according to Rabbi Meir, you stop eating. According to Rabbi Yehuda, 2 hours earlier, you stop eating. So all of that is because there's a concern that you may get confused between when is exactly noon, when is the transition from the morning to afternoon. So if the time to stop eating chametz, the real time, was at night, then there's no confusion about day and night. Twilight. But we wouldn't have said 11 o'clock or something, 12 o'clock. This is clearly an issue of noontime, and that's why we're coming back and we're putting an hour or two earlier. The question is, where did we get this concept from that it's asr from noon? Amar Abaya Trekrei Ksiv. Abaya says, it says two psukim. Ksiv Shivas Yom Sarli Matzav B'Betechem. It says 7 days there should be no leaven in your house. Ksiv Ach B'Yom Rishon Tashbisu Sarm B'Betechem. And it says the first day you should destroy the leaven. Now the problem is that if you destroy it on the first day of Pesach, then part of the day already came in, and you have the chametz there before it was destroyed. And it says for 7 days you can't have it. How did you do it on the first day? It means that you have to destroy it on the 14th. You have to destroy it on the day before. Where's the question? How do you know Shivas Yamim really means Shivas Yamim? How do you know it means 7 full days starting at night? Maybe Shivas Yamim means 7 days, just days, and not the night. It entered my mind to say days. Yamim and Leilas Lay. So Ach B'Yom Rishon is teaching me that you even have to destroy it by night. Notice the pasuk is telling me that you destroy it by night, because really without that pasuk, I would have thought that I have until the morning to destroy it. The Gemara says no, I never would have thought that anyway. We're on top of it because we have a iskish, a hekish, juxtaposition or a comparison between destroying leaven to eating chametz, and then we have this comparison of achilas chametz la achilas matzah, of eating chametz is compared to, or is right next to eating matzah, and it goes like this: it says 7 days you shouldn't eat leaven. 7 days you shouldn't have leaven in the house, because anyone that eats leaven is cut off. Now, v'achilas chametz la'achilas matzah. It says that you shouldn't eat any leaven in all of your dwelling places. You should eat matzah. And it says by matzah that you have to eat the matzah at night. Basically, A equals B equals C. Since matzah is eaten by night, so therefore you can't eat chametz by night. So therefore you can't have chametz by night. Which means I never would have thought that I need Ach B'Yom Rishon to tell me the night. So therefore, what is it telling me? So it's telling me the 14th by day. Maybe it's telling me that I have to destroy it on the 14th by night. The night when we do B'dikas Chametz, maybe you have to destroy it back then. says Bayom Ksiv, Ach Bayom Rishon. It's the first day, which means the day. We're learning Bayom Rishon now means the first day, the day prior. It says by Bayom, so it's by day, it's not by night. Bayom Mitzafra. So maybe it's from the morning. It says Ach Cholak. Ach is dividing the day in half. Rashi over here has this interesting thing that the word Ach he has a way of getting the Aleph to turn into a Ches and the Chaf to turn into a Tzadik, which means Chetz, which is like Chatzi, which means like half. It's an interesting Rashi. He calls it Achas, the Ta, Gif, the Chatz. It's a type of exchanging letters. That Aleph exchanges for a Ches and a Samach, Beis for a Tes and a Ayin. Okay, let's leave it right here. Good day, everyone.